Yo, what is up guys? Ethan here back with another video, and today we are back with the video everybody has been waiting for, my Power 5 conference predictions with an addition of the top 16 group of 5 teams. I'm going to be going through all the Power 5 conferences. You will see my record prediction for each and every single team, and then like I just said, the top 16 group of 5 teams based on my projected record. Now, before I do get into that, I just want to say something quick. Notre Dame and BYU are not going to be in this video, but both teams are 10-2. If you watch my deep dive predictions on them, they are both already on the channel, so if you are a Notre Dame or a BYU fan, go check out those videos as we will not be talking about them in this video. But let's hop straight into my predictions as we will start off with the Big Ten. Now, I do want to start off with the Big Ten West, as that is one of the toughest conferences overall in all college football to predict for this upcoming season. And I do want to say these predictions were made before the Week 0 games, so that Northwestern win versus Nebraska was not counted into this prediction. And as you can see, I have Nebraska going 9-3 this upcoming season. And even though they choked the lead versus Northwestern, I'm personally still a big fan of this Nebraska team. But Minnesota, I'd want to talk about them since I didn't get into a deep dive. And also, before I say this, if I didn't do a deep dive on your team, I'm probably going to be talking about them more. If I have done a deep dive on them, I'm probably not going to be talking about them as much since I've already talked about them in a full-fledged video. But Minnesota is one of those teams that I was not able to do a prediction on because I have them basically tying versus Nebraska. And if Minnesota defeats Nebraska in that head-to-head, Minnesota would be winning the Big Ten West. And that's what the first 3 predictions, or the first 3 teams with Nebraska, Minnesota, and Purdue. Whoever is going to win those head-to-head, in my opinion, are going to be the winner of this division. Minnesota has a great defense. They have one of the best safety duos in all college football. You have experience at that quarterback position in Tanner Morgan. I'm a big fan of Mo Ibrahim. And also Trey Potts is also behind him, and who is a really good backup running back. And PJ Fleck is always a great coach, so I think this Minnesota team is going to be thriving this upcoming season. And if I didn't have them losing at Nebraska, they can very easily win the division. Purdue I also have at 9-3. We just seen Purdue last year. That defense is going to be really, really good. Personally, even though you do lose George Karlaftis due to the NFL, I think that defensive line as a whole will be improved. Aiden O'Connell, a quarterback, I think is going to be really good. His stats last year, if you look into a deep dive, was really, really impressive. And even though you did lose David Bell due to the NFL draft, as he's with the Browns now, overall as a receiving core, it's much deeper. You have Malik Carr coming back. You have Payne Durham coming back. Overall, I think this Purdue offense is going to be much better. Even though you don't have a superstar like in David Bell, the depth is going to be there for Purdue, and they're definitely going to be winning a lot of games this upcoming season. If you saw my Iowa prediction, I'm still have some question marks with this defense. Well, not the defense. The defense is going to be one of the best in the country. I have tons of question marks with the offense, my bad. And you lost your best offensive player in Tyler Goodson. I really don't see a way that Iowa really improves this offense this much upcoming this year. And personally, I would be actually surprised if they do make the Big Ten championship. They will be in contention for the West, but I just can't see them winning this upcoming year. A lot of people are probably going to be surprised about that Wisconsin pick, as I have them number 5 in the West, only going 7-5. I understand you have a really good running back core with Braylon Allen and Ches Malusi. But Graham Mertz, I think, is just going to struggle in this offense once again this year. The passing game is going to be non-existent, and even though I think people are overrating this defense a little bit, I do understand you have Nick Herbig, who's going to be in contention for Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. But I don't think that secondary is going to be good as much, and I think in close games, Wisconsin will actually lose. They're still going to be a really good team. They're still going to be in contention for the West. But out of all the top 5 teams that really have a true chance of winning the West, I'm lowest on Wisconsin. Illinois at 5-7 may surprise a lot of people too. I think they're going to pull off a few wins in the conference play. If you watch my Iowa predictions, you saw I have an upset where Illinois defeats Iowa. But overall, I think this Illinois team is going to be very slept on, and I think they could easily win a few upset games along this conference schedule. We saw it in week 0 with Chase Brown absolutely destroying that Wyoming defense. I think he's going to do that on multiple occasions this upcoming year. And I think Brett Bielema is a really good head coach. Maybe not a bowl game for Illinois, but they're going to be much improved off of last season. And now I have Northwestern at 7. Based on what we saw in week 0, this prediction can easily backfire. But there's still just some question marks I have with this overall team. But Northwestern can easily be where Wisconsin is with a 7-5 record. Now let's go on to the East, as I'm not even going to explain myself. Ohio State going 12-0. There's only like 2-3 games I really see them actually having a legitimate chance of losing. Ohio State's going to be one of the top teams in college football this upcoming season. Michigan I have a lot of question marks with. I don't think they're going to be back in the Big Ten Championship. And overall, I think as you just watch them play, there's going to be a lot of close games where you're just going to think about, like, why was this game close? And I think they're going to be one of the overall worst 10-win teams in college football this year. I still have tons of question marks with that defense. But I think this offense is going to be really good this upcoming year under either Cade McNamara or J.J. McCarthy. Even though Josh Gaddis left, I think this offense actually might be improved, even though you did lose on Hassan Haskins as well. But Michigan can very easily be one of those teams where they just fall out of the top 10, one of those teams where they're projected as a top 5 team to enter the year, and then they're not even top 25 at the end of the year. I could very much see that with all the question marks with Michigan this upcoming year. But I think there's too much talent on this Michigan team for them to do worse than 9 wins, but I have them going 10-2. I did deep dives for Penn State and Michigan State, so I'm not going to be talking about them much. I think Penn State is probably one of the most boomer bust teams in all college football this upcoming year. They could easily go 6-6, but also at the same time, with the amount of talent, and if James Franklin does a really good head coach job this year, they have the potential to go 11-1 this year, in my opinion. Michigan State, like I said in the video, this offense is getting a tad underrated in my opinion due to everyone saying Kenneth Walker was the offense. But then at the same time, looking at the returning production on the defensive side, I think this Michigan State defense is getting a little overrated. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year, but they're definitely going to be in that contention with Penn State and Michigan as that number 2 team in the East. I have Maryland at 5 as they go 7-5, and I think they're going to be very matchup based this upcoming year. Like if you have that, I talked about that main game versus Penn State, that's going to be a struggle in my opinion. I think Penn State's going to easily beat Maryland. And then on the other end, I think Maryland matches up well versus Michigan State, as they have that 2-headed monster receiver and Dante Demas Jr. and Raheem Jarrett. And that Michigan State secondary is still very, very questionable. So Maryland is going to be very matchup based in my opinion. If you have a bad passing defense, I think Maryland wins. But then if you have a good passing defense, I think you just get blown out. Rutgers is on the same pace as Illinois in my opinion, as they do have a chance to pull off a big time upset in conference play this upcoming season. But overall, I think Illinois has better coaching and better overall talent. Even though the defense for Rutgers may be a little better, I'm just more confident in Illinois. So that's why I have Rutgers going worse than Illinois at 3-9. And then Indiana, I think they're the worst team in the Big Ten this upcoming year. And Tom Allen could be fired, but yeah, that is it for my Big Ten predictions as we go on to the Big 12. Now, the Big 12 may be the most controversial conference I have out there. You already see the big 2 names of the conference in the conference championship. And even though I really like Baylor and Kansas State, just with how the games just ended up going, it was Oklahoma, Texas. I'm confident Oklahoma is going to make it this year, in my opinion. I think Jeff Lebby is going to do really good with that offense. And then Brent Venables is going to do astounding things with this defense to improve that defense. People may be saying, why Texas? I think at the end of the day, in conference play, they will be able to just beat teams with their overwhelming amount of talent. With Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, Quinn Ewers, Roshan Johnson when he returns. That offense is going to be crazy. And then whoever wins that head-to-head versus Texas and Baylor is probably who is going to be in the Big 12 championship. And like I said, in all my predictions, it's a 50-50 game, and as you know, in those 50-50 games, I always lean towards the home team. Texas is a home team in that game, so they would win that game. I'm very skeptical about that Baylor offense. I really like their coaching staff, but the amount of talent offensively, they could lose some games. And as you saw in my Baylor video, I have them getting upset at Texas Tech. So I think Baylor's going to slip up in one big-time game in conference play. Last year versus Texas Tech was very close. Why can't Texas Tech win this year with their offense being much improved under Joey McGuire? Kansas State at number 4. I really like this Kansas State team. It's just all their tough games, it seems like, are on the road. Your biggest home game is that Texas game, in which I do have them winning, but you have to go to Oklahoma. Like, it's crazy for Kansas State. I have Oklahoma State at 5, and it's the same case of why Texas is over Baylor, just a head-to-head matchup, even though they have the same record overall, and then the conference record. Kansas State wins the head-to-head versus Oklahoma State. That's why Kansas State is 4. Oklahoma State is 5. But Oklahoma State, I don't think they're going to be able to match the success of last year. But I think there's only 5 top teams in the Big 12 this year. Iowa State, I just can't see a way Matt Campbell doesn't find a way to make a bowl game. I think they will go 6-6, but that's the floor. But also at the same time, I think the ceiling's only 7-5. Texas Tech at number 7 may surprise a few people. I'm just a big fan of this offense. I think this Texas Tech offense is going to be very, very good. I'm a big fan of Joey McGuire and that coaching staff that he's brought in. The defense will struggle, which is why they're not going to be able to make a bowl game. But they are going to be able to win some big-time games. They do beat Baylor at home. And as you haven't saw, I have them beating Houston at home, and Houston is regarded as the top group of 5 team entering this upcoming season. So Texas Tech's offense is definitely going to be able to put points on the board, and they're definitely going to be able to win some games. They're just going to miss the cut for the bowl game, but Texas Tech is on the rise. West Virginia is a rare case where they are better than Texas Tech and Iowa State, in my opinion. But based on the matchups, on the locations, and that tough non-conference schedule, that non-conference schedule is tough for no reason. You will lose that Pitt game. You will lose that Virginia Tech game, in my opinion. West Virginia has the talent. I really like Neil Brown, but this conference schedule just doesn't line for him. It's kind of like how I said about Kansas State. All your tough games seem to be on the road. And then I do think you do lose a few home games, like that Baylor game at that Thursday night slot. So West Virginia at 4-8, I wanted to have them higher, but I just couldn't. TCU, man, I have a feeling I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one. I have them going 4-8 as well. They're just under West Virginia, as West Virginia won more conference games. And I've been very vocal. I'm not a big fan of this TCU team, but then when I see like the Bear on College Game Day saying they have the chance to win the Big 12, it just shows you the big boom or bust potential with this TCU team. They're probably going to be up there with like a Penn State and Nebraska for the biggest boom or bust teams in all college football this upcoming season. But I just have a few question marks with Sonny Dykes overall with this offense. As you see with that Kansas game, I actually have Kansas defeating TCU at home. I'm just a big fan of that the Kansas coaching staff. But TCU, it's going to take a year or two, in my opinion, for them to get fully developed. I'm not the biggest fan of that Sonny Dykes hire, if I'm being personally honest. And it's going to be a little struggle for TCU this upcoming year. Kansas, they're going to be much improved off of last year. And I think they're going to be very close in a lot of conference games this upcoming year. Versus who? I'm not going to say because I don't even know myself. But like I just stated, I do have them winning at least a conference game versus TCU. This Kansas team is definitely on the rise with this coaching staff. And overall, I just think Oklahoma is the best team in the Big 12. And now let's go on to the ACC. And now as we look at the ACC, we'll start off with the Atlantic. I have Clemson on top. Them and NC State is just down to the head-to-head. Clemson will beat NC State at home, in which Clemson will win the Atlantic Division. The offense should be much improved. I think Kobe Pace and Will Shipley are going to have to lead this defense, and that rushing duo is going to be electric. Then, in my opinion, you have the best defense in all college football. Clemson is bound to have a top year, a bounce-back year, and this is where it starts going 10-2. And NC State goes 10-2 as well. They just lose 2 conference games with that Louisville loss and that Clemson loss. And let's just say you don't lose to Louisville, or you don't lose that North Carolina game, that back-to-back road stretch at the end of the season. Not only can NC State win the division, they could easily make the college football playoff. Devin Leary is a really good quarterback. You have tons of experience coming back on the defensive side as well as the offensive side. NC State can definitely make a push, but I just think at the end of the day, whoever wins that Clemson-NC State game will win that division, and since it's in Death Valley, I went with the Tigers. Boston College at 3 may surprise a lot of people. I'm just a big fan of Jeff Hafley. I think that defense for Boston College is going to be much improved. Zay Flowers is one of the most underappreciated wide receivers in all college football. That connection he has with Phil Jurkovec is going to be absolutely insane. People say Boston College really wasn't good last year. People just forget Phil Jurkovec was hurt for the majority of the season last year, and when he was in for Boston College was a completely different team. Overall, not even talking about Zay Flowers, this wide receiver core for Boston College, in my opinion, is very underrated. The offensive line always seems to have some top tier guys. So overall, I'm just a big fan of this Boston College team. And I have them upsetting Clemson. As you saw in my Clemson prediction video, this Boston College team is definitely going to be capable of having a few upsets for this upcoming season. I have Louisville at 4 going in 7-5. I'm just going to talk about Louisville, Florida State, and Wake Forest for a second. Wake Forest, I think Boston College is better than Wake Forest. And I made all this before the Sam Hartman news. If Sam Hartman does not play the entire season, Wake Forest is going 6-6 or 5-7 in my opinion. Maybe 7-5, but nothing like 8-4. And overall, I'm not a big fan of Sam Hartman. And even though the record is 8-4, they're placed at 6. But even without Sam Hartman, they could actually be placed 6th in the standings with a worse record. But it's just overall with the conference wins. Louisville just has a better conference record than Florida State and Wake Forest. Louisville is a really underrated team in the ACC. Malik Cunningham is one of the most electric players in all college football. Super fun to watch. And overall, that offense for Louisville is going to be very fun to watch. The defenses do have some question marks about, but overall, you have a lot of players coming in from the transfer portal. So the defense should be much improved after a disappointing year last year on the defensive side. I have Florida State making a bowl game. I do. But it was down to one game, and it was the Duquesne game. And that was such an easy game to pick. Like, Florida State, I think with this schedule, if you don't make a bowl game, Mike Norvell has to get out of there. 6-6 even, I would consider firing Mike Norvell, if I'm being completely honest with you. I just don't know about this Florida State team, man. I'm just not a big fan of the Seminoles team. Wake Forest is placed 6th, even with an 8-4 record, but like I just said a minute ago, if Sam Hartman does not play the entire season, they could actually be placed 6th in the standings with a worse record than Florida State. Then I have Syracuse at number 7, I almost said 9. You do go 3-9 though. You do have a conference win, that's versus Virginia. But I think after that Virginia game, you're just going to go on a massive losing streak for Syracuse. But you are definitely going to be keeping games close throughout that stretch. So Syracuse is sadly going to be placed 7th. Now the Coastal is definitely much more up in the air, as you have Miami, Pitt, Virginia, North Carolina, and maybe even Virginia Tech all in the running to win the division. I ended up choosing Miami. You have by far the best coaching staff in that division. Even though Pat Narduzzi has the culture, just overall talent of coaching, Miami has the edge. Overall talent, Miami has the edge in everything. I'm just a big believer in this Miami team this year. Your only 2 losses are going to be at Virginia and at Clemson. I have Pitt at number 2. I think Pitt is definitely getting a little underappreciated, even though you did lose Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison and your offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple. But this Pitt team with Keaton Slovis is definitely going to be much improved. Maybe not top what you did last year, but this defense is not going to make this team go worse than 8-4 in my opinion. But personally, I think they do it a little better and go 9-3. Virginia going 8-4, people are having them like 4 or 5 wins, and I just don't understand it. Even though the offense for Clemson wasn't good last year, Tony Elliott is still a really good offensive-minded coach, and with the overall talent Virginia has on the offensive side of the ball, they're going to be able to carry teams to victories, and they're going to be putting up some massive offensive numbers, in my opinion, with Brennan Armstrong, Dontavian Wicks, and Keaton Thompson. And even though the defense is not going to be that good, I just think with this offense, it's just going to be so overpowered, you can't go worse than 6-6. And personally, just since I'm higher on Virginia's offense than most people, I have them going 8-4. At number 4, I have UNC going 6-6. Drake May just absolutely destroyed Florida A&M the other night. I think Drake May is the real deal. This offense for UNC is going to be really good, but the defense, they have some massive question marks, and I had question marks entering the season, and after what I just saw versus Florida A&M, there's some more question marks, and I do have you losing at App State. We will get to them in a little bit, but UNC 6-6 on year. At number 5, I have Virginia Tech. You go 7-5, and even though I have UNC beating Virginia Tech's schedule, in my opinion, it's so easy. I would actually be surprised if you don't make a bowl game. I really do like Brent Pry as head coach, and just looking at some games, they could easily go 9-3 just because of the schedule and the talent defensively. But I have them going 7-5, a little bit worse, because I just don't know how this offense is going to look, and I do have some serious question marks with that offense. I have no worries about the defense, as you do have Brent Pry. He was the defensive coordinator, I think, for Penn State for years and years. That's not going to be the issue for Virginia Tech, but Virginia Tech is definitely on the rise, folks. And then I'm not going to waste your time. Georgia Tech sucks. Duke sucks. Both 2-10. Some of the worst Power 5 teams in all college football. I have them going worse than Kansas. Mike Elko just went to Duke, so he is obviously not going to get fired. But Jeff Collins, you're out of Georgia Tech, my guy. So overall, that's the ACC. And then I do have Miami defeating Clemson in the ACC championship as revenge from the regular season. And Miami's going to be your ACC champions. Now let's go on to the Pac-12. And we'll start off with the North, but I just want to say this for the conference championship game, if you haven't known. It's only the top 2 teams in the Pac-12 now instead of the top division winners. So we can have a Utah-USC game again for the Pac-12 championship, but that's not going to happen. We'll get to that in a second. But off in the North, I have Oregon being first in that division as they go 10-2. There's too much talent on this Oregon team, in my opinion, to go worse than 9-3. I'm seeing 7-5 and 8-4. That's kind of crazy in my opinion. And even though Bo Nix is probably not a top 20, 30, maybe even 40 quarterback in all college football, he gets the job done. He gets plays downfield, and he can win you big time football games. So I think Bo Nix is getting a lot of hate. Everyone's saying, oh, Ty Thompson should start. As an Oregon fan, I'm saying no, it should be Bo Nix. And overall, I think this offense is going to be electric. And even though we don't have a superstar on this offense, I do think at the end of the day, we will be a top 25-30 offense in all of college football for this upcoming season. But outside of Oregon, this North Division is kind of crazy, as I think Cal's going to finish last, but Washington State, Washington, Oregon State, and Stanford all have the chance to be second in the North Division. And based on head-to-heads, even though Washington State, Washington, and Oregon State, all have the same conference record and overall record, Washington State ends up being second due to head-to-head matchups. I really do like this Washington State team, though, because of Cam Ward. I think he is going to be that guy, and I think he's going to propel this offense to heights that we haven't seen from Washington State since the Mike Leach days. And overall, I think this defense will be improved. I just really like Jake Dicker at head coach for Wazoo. And overall, as you saw in my Oregon predictions, I actually have Wazoo defeating Oregon in a massive upset on the road. Washington State is definitely capable of getting to 8, potentially even 9 wins this upcoming season. I have Washington at 3, and even though I may say Oregon State overall is the better team than Washington, I just think Washington's offense is just going to be much, much better. And I think it's going to be even better than people anticipate. He had one of the worst passing offenses last year, but under Kalen DeBoer, that's going to be much improved, as we saw what he did with Jake Haener over there at Fresno State. This rushing game always seems to be good at Washington, so we'll see how that goes. Washington always seems to have a really good secondary, so I think their secondary is going to be just fine. And overall with that defense, I think they're going to be one of the top 4 or 5 defenses in the Pac-12. So that defense will be able to carry them the wins. If Washington does not make a bowl game this year, I'll be absolutely shocked. I think the ceiling of this team would be 8-4. I can't see them doing more because of just overall talent on the offense. But I think Washington is going to have a much improved year under Kalen DeBoer. Oregon State just lost a few guys, and I'm not sure if they're going to be able to resurrect their success off of last season. They're definitely going to be a bowl team. I really like Jonathan Smith at head coach, but like I said, they can easily be number 2 in the North. It's just dependent on head-to-head matchups and locations for me. So even though Oregon State's at 7-5-4, they can easily be much better, be like 8-4, and also be second in the North. At number 5, I have Stanford, and it's tough not having them go to a bowl game. David Shaw, even though I'm not the biggest fan of him, he does have tons of experience. And overall, with the returning starting production Stanford has, which is one of the top in all of college football, not just the Power 5, it's hard to not have them go to a bowl game. But I think they're going to be very close in a lot of these games. And I think that BYU game is at the end of the year is just going to be a deciding factor. If you didn't watch my BYU predictions, go watch that video after this one. But I just had Stanford losing a very close game, and Stanford could very easily go 9-3 in my opinion. But then at the same time, I can very much easily see them going 3-9 if David Shaw doesn't get his act together and has his Stanford team struggling like it was last season. And then I have Cal going 4-8. Justin Wilcox over there at Cal is a good coach, but Cal just has like no talent on both sides of the football. He will keep it close in a few games as well. But Cal's going to be 6 in the North, and overall talent-wise, they have the worst amount of talent. Then with the South, you just have the top 3 teams, and then the bottom 3 teams. Utah is definitely the favorite to win the Pac-12. I have them winning the Pac-12 championship game. They're going to go 10-2, and the only reason why they are above USC is the conference record. Utah only loses 1 conference game, which is at Oregon, but USC loses 2 conference games, which is at Oregon State and at Utah. Also, Utah had the head-to-head anyway, so they would win this division anyway, but that really doesn't matter when it comes down to the conference championship. And because USC lost 2 conference games, Oregon and Utah will be the Pac-12 championship, because Oregon also only lost 1 conference game, which was at Washington State. But Utah, I think they're easily going to win the South Division, in my opinion. USC, definitely going to be much improved of last year. We already talked about that in the deep dive. If you haven't watched that video, go check it out. But they're going to be very, very close to make the Pac-12 championship game, but this is just not their year. Next year, though, USC could easily make the college football playoffs. I have UCLA going 9-3. Maybe that's a little excessive. I think this is the ceiling for UCLA, in my opinion. DTR Dorian Thomas-Robinson returned for his senior year. I think he's going to put up monster numbers, as the offense is literally just going to be around him. You did lose one of your top receivers in Chase Cota, I always get them mixed up. You lost Britton Brown due to the NFL, but Zach Charbonnet, a running back, he's going to be a beast. Look out for Zach Charbonnet, as he could be top tier of all running backs in college football this upcoming season. But this defense for UCLA could lose them a few games, but I just think Chip Kelly's just going to say no, and they're going to win a few of those games. But UCLA, they could definitely be like a 7-5, 8-4 team, but I'm just a big fan of DTR in that offense, so I just gave them a 9-3 record. Now, after those 3 games, a humongous drop-off, as you had won from 9-3 from number 3 to 4-8 at number 4. Just a crazy drop-off. Arizona State, Herm Edwards is a really good coach, but yeah, so many players transfer out. You do have Emory Jones transferring in from Florida at quarterback, but that's not going to be enough in my opinion. This Arizona State team is really going to struggle, and I'm seeing a few bet sites like 7-8 wins. They're like the 4th best odds to win the Pac-12. I do not see that at all. This team is not going to make a bowl game in my opinion. At best 6-6, maybe. But with all the accusations going around at Arizona State, I just can't see a successful season going down there in Tempe. I have Arizona at number 5 going 3-9. I think Arizona State's going to be a tad better than people anticipate, but they're just not going to be up there. Give them a year or two, and they're definitely going to be a really good team in the Pac-12, but this year's not their year. And then number 6, I have Colorado going 1-11. The worst Power 5 team record I have to date. Not only did you just get murdered in the transfer portal as you lost some of your key guys like Brendan Rice, Christopher Gonzalez, Jarek Broussard. This non-conference schedule is killer. You're going to lose to TCU. You're going to lose the Air Force. The only win I have on this schedule for Colorado is a home game versus Cal. You will keep a few games close like Arizona State, Arizona, but those games are like on the road, and I'm just more confident in both Arizona schools to defeat Colorado. I think Carl Durrell's going to get obviously fired after this year if you go 1-11, my bad. But I'm just not a big fan of this Colorado team, and they're going to be going into rebuilding mode soon. But the Pac-12 championship, Utah versus Oregon. I have Oregon winning the home game, but I have Utah retaking the throne as they're going to be back-to-back winners of the Pac-12. Now let's finally get into the SEC. Now it's time to talk about the best division in all college football, the SEC West. And as you can tell, Mississippi State is the only team not going to make a bowl game from the SEC West. Yet Mississippi State could very easily make a bowl game. We'll get to them in a minute. But everybody's going to be making a bowl game. This division is so talented, and it's just crazy. I'm not going to be talking about Alabama much. We already know about them. I have them going undefeated. They will be close in some games like at Arkansas, at LSU, at Ole Miss. But I think at the end of the day, they have so much talent and so much great coaching, they will find a way to get back to Atlanta undefeated. Second, I have Texas A&M, and I know a lot of people just don't like Texas A&M. I have them going 9-3. I don't think they're going to go 10-2. In my opinion, I'm just have some question marks about Jimbo Fisher, and is Haynes King really going to lead this team to a 10 wins? I cannot see that. Based on last year's recruiting class, to go worse than last year, I think it's 8-4 or 9-3 for this Aggies team this upcoming season. Also, you may be looking at that conference record. I do have Miami beating them, so that's why they are over Ole Miss, as Ole Miss has 3 conference losses, and Ole Miss can very much start out 7-0 and be a top 5 team once they get into those tough major games. And personally, I would take Arkansas and potentially even LSU over this Ole Miss team, but Ole Miss just has such an easy start to the season. Your non-conference is super easy. Your toughest game is at Georgia Tech, and as we just saw, I have them only winning 2 games. Like, this Ole Miss schedule is just going to make their record look better than the overall team is. This Ole Miss team is a top 25 team. I do want to say that. But overall, I think they're going to go 9-3. But Arkansas is number 4. I can very easily see Arkansas as a 10-2 team. But just with how tough that schedule is, I had to put them at 8-4. You do beat like a team like Cincinnati, but then I do have you also losing at BYU. And also I have Ole Miss beating you. If you want to know why, just look at the Ole Miss and or Arkansas video predictions. But Ole Miss and Arkansas are really good teams. Then we have LSU at 8-4. I think LSU is getting a tad underrated by the public. They're not going to be a 9 or 10 win team. But people are saying this is a 6-7 win team. And I just can't see it. This defense is going to be very, very, very good for this LSU defense. And Brian Kelly's just not going to allow that bad of a season for this Notre Dame team. I have Auburn at 6-6. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of Auburn, I have them going to a bowl game. Brian Harsin is still going to be on the hot seat after this. And the only reason why I have them going 6-6 is because they have favorable games at home. Like the Penn State game, I have Auburn winning, even though I do prefer Penn State. And overall, just outside of Penn State, the non-conference is super, super easy. But Auburn does make a bowl game. Now, Mississippi State at 7, I do want to talk about real quick. I have them going 5-7, and I think Mississippi State's going to be like this year's Nebraska. They're a very, very, very good team, but they're going to miss out on a few games because they're going to choke at the end. I think they're going to keep it close versus Georgia. And overall, on this schedule, I think Mississippi State is going to keep it close throughout all their games. What I have Mississippi State at 5-7 is the floor for this team. They could easily go 8-4 depending on how good Will Rogers is with that air raid offense. And like I said at the very beginning, Mississippi State can very easily make a bowl game, and all the SEC West teams could make a bowl game. That's how great this division is. Now as we go on to the East, I'm not going to talk about Georgia much. 11-1. You may be saying, what's that loss? I have them getting upset at South Carolina. And personally, I just think Georgia is not going to go undefeated this year. But I do think they lose one game. It could be versus Oregon, but I just think they're not going to lose their first game back. And then it also could be at Mississippi State. It's just an out-of-division team that they're not really used to. And that's in Starkville. They could slip up there. I was going to say Kentucky, but Georgia's owned Kentucky for I don't know how long now. So South Carolina is just the only reasonable option. And I really do like this South Carolina team as they are improving. I have Tennessee going 9-3. I just think this offense is going to be electric just like how it was last year. And I think the defense will improve. And overall, I think as a team, this Tennessee team will improve as they will be second in the SEC East. Florida I have going 8-4. Maybe this is a tad too high. They do have a big time win versus Utah, which is huge for their season. But they are going to slip up in a few games. But overall, I'm just a big fan of AR-15 and Billy Napier in that offense. Florida's going to be dangerous in some of these games. Kentucky, I have 4th going 8-4. The only reason why Florida's ahead is the head-to-head. I know Kentucky does have that Florida edge, but I think they're going to win that game in Gainesville. Kentucky also will lose to like Ole Miss or whatever, but this Kentucky team's going to be really good. They have a very experienced defense. Will Levis is going to be much better in my opinion, and it's really going to be intriguing to see how this offense works with a new offensive coordinator coming in for Kentucky. And Kentucky can very easily go 9-3, potentially 10-2, and be second in this SEC East. You could win versus Georgia, even though personally I cannot see it. But Kentucky, this is seeding-wise, this is probably going to be the lowest Kentucky will be for the upcoming season. 5th, I have South Carolina. They go 7-5. And I think that overall, I want to have South Carolina better than this, but they just have a super tough schedule. Outside of that Georgia game, which I have a huge upset in, all their big-time games I really have them losing to. That last game versus Clemson is going to be a killer game for them, in my opinion. And overall, even though you do have some guys like Spencer Rattler coming in at quarterback, I really like this offense and that secondary. But South Carolina, they're going to be on the rise. Shane Beamer is not going to allow this team to go worse than 6-6. But South Carolina, I've been seeing some people say 10-2, 9-3. Just with the depth issues and just the kind of a lack of experience, I cannot see it, especially when you have some tough non-conference games. Missouri, I know I mistyped it. It's kind of too late to go back, but I have them going 4-8. Missouri's going to be on the rise. They're going to be very dangerous in the upcoming years, in my opinion. They could definitely have like an 8-4, 9-3 record in around 2-3 seasons with super 5-star wide receiver in Luther Burton. But this year, I think it's going to be a little of a slow year. It's kind of going to be like how Mississippi State is. They're going to be close in a few games, but just overall, the talent factor is just not going to be on Mizzou's side. And I just have them going 4-8. Vanderbilt looked good versus Hawaii. I do have to say that, but I have them going 2-10. You're not going to win the SEC game yet again, and it's going to be a tough year for Vandy. Now let's hop into my top 16 group of 5 teams for this upcoming college football season. Now to save some time, I'm going to be very brief with these top 16 teams. If you have any more questions, just let me know in the comments section below. Fresno State I'm not going to be diving into as I did a full-fledged deep dive into them, but I have them going 11-1, undefeated in conference play with their only loss at USC. I'm just a humongous fan of what they did in the offseason. Getting Jake Haener back at quarterback after he declared for the transfer portal was huge. Your main defensive players also returned. You have a two-headed monster at wide receiver in Josh Kelly and Jalen Cropper. Jordan Mims returns at running back. This offense is going to be stacked. Fresno State, in my opinion, just has the most overall talent out of any group of 5 team. Maybe the schedule is a little bit tougher than a few teams, but I think Fresno State will be the best group of 5 team upcoming this college football season. SMU at 2. I also forgot to say this at the beginning. This is just based on record. So there could be like an 8-4 team better than a 9-3 team. But out of the teams that have the same record, I did it on my personal opinion. SMU is over Houston is mainly because not only does SMU defeat Houston in the regular season, in my opinion, I'm just a big fan of Rhett Lashley at quarterback for head coach, my bad. Tanner Mordecai is the quarterback for SMU. He transferred in from Oklahoma, and I have all the belief in the world that he's going to have a monster season under Lashley's offense. SMU, even though you did lose Sonny Dykes as head coach, this offense could be a lot more explosive under Rhett Lashley. And I just think SMU is a really good team. Houston's at number 3. Houston and SMU are going to be a flip-flop. Even though I have SMU defeating Houston in the regular season, I think if they rematched at a neutral site or at home for Houston, I think Houston would win that game. Their defense is overall better. But overall, I think SMU may have a better offense, even though Houston has a monster in Tank Dell. He was on the thumbnail. And then also a really good quarterback in Clayton Tune. I have App State at number 4. I think they're going to win the Sun Belt this year. And it's mainly just because of that two-headed monster. I have running back for App State, and Nate Noel and Cameron Peoples. I think both of them are phenomenal running backs, and this is going to be a run-heavy team for this upcoming year. The defense for App State always seems to show up, and the quarterback play is always consistent. App State is going to win the Sun Belt, and that's why I have them at number 4. At number 5, I have Cincinnati, and this is just after they become the first group of 5 team to make the college football playoff. But personally, just the loss of the NFL talent, in my opinion, is huge. And even though you do have a few transfers coming in, like Ivan Pace from Miami of Ohio, and this offense still has some key players, I just have some questions about the overall talent. And personally, I think a team like Coastal is better than Cincinnati. The only reason why I have Cincinnati at 5 instead of Coastal is because of Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell, by himself, overall in college football, not just a group of 5, is a top 5 coach in all of college football. And I am fully confident he's going to be able to make this Cincinnati team go to 10 wins this upcoming season. Now, sadly, they won't make the AAC championship game, as that will be a rematch of Houston versus SMU. But Cincinnati's going to have a really good year. Your only conference loss is also at SMU. So I'm really big on the Cincinnati team, even though they lost a lot. But just because of what they lost, they're not going to be a top 4 team. At number 6, I have Coastal Carolina. And this team is just so high because Jamie Chadwell is a phenomenal coach. I'm surprised he did not leave Coastal and went to a Power 5 job like a Washington. But Grayson McCall is that guy. He is a top 10 quarterback in all college football. He is super accurate. He has the ability to throw it downfield. And if you need to, he can make plays on the ground by himself. And even though you did lose your top 2 targets at Coastal Carolina, that really doesn't matter. This team always finds ways to get the ball downfield, and I'm confident that this Coastal team will. This defense is also very, very, very good. Probably going to be the best defense in the Sun Belt for this upcoming season. Coastal Carolina is going to be very good, and it's going to be between them and App State as the top team in the Sun Belt for this upcoming year. At 7, I have UAB, and personally, they may be a tad high to a few people, but I think this is a really good spot for them. I'm just a big fan of this offense, and people say they lost their head coach in Bill Clark. Even though that's going to be big, I really don't think this is going to be that much of a loss. I think Dwayne McBride is just going to carry this offense, and this offense is going to be very, very good in this Conference USA. People may be surprised that UTSA isn't the top team, maybe because of the record, but I think UAB is the best Conference USA team this upcoming season. At number 8, I have Louisiana, and they had the potential to be a top 4, but they lost a lot due to transfer portal after Billy Napier decided to leave for the Florida job. You lost your starting running back in Montreal Jackson, or Johnson, always getting mixed up. Osiris Torrance, your top offensive lineman, one of the best guards in all college football. He left for Florida too. But overall, I think this Louisiana team still has a lot of people, even though Levi Lewis declared or he graduated. I think this offense is still going to be very, very good. The scheme's basically the same, even though Napier left. So even though they lost a lot of guys, overall the scheme's going to be the same, and the transition is not going to be as much. Also, they have a very relatively easy conference schedule, so I think Louisiana will also go 10-2 this upcoming season. At number 9, I have UCF, and the only reason why they're this low at 10-2 is just because of that conference record. Up to this point, all the other teams were 7-1. UCF lost 2 conference games as they went 6-2. But Gus Malzahn is going to be really good. John Rice Plumlee, my bad. Watch out for him at quarterback. He's going to be lethal in the American. He's going to be hard to stop. And I just think UCF is going to be a really good team. They're going to be competitive in the American yet again. But they're going to be the worst out of the top 4 teams in Houston, SMU, Cincinnati, and UCF. At number 10, I have UTSA. And I have them going 7-1 conference play as well. The only reason why they are this low is because they have some tough non-conference games. They have to go to Texas, which I have them losing. They have to host Houston, very close game, but I think Houston wins that game. And then also, I think you slip up at UAB. That will be a 50-50 game, but UAB is the home team in that case, in which UTSA will win. But everyone's saying Sincere McCormick leaving is a big loss. You get Traylon Smith transferring in from Arkansas. I don't think that's going to be as big as a loss as people anticipate. You still got Frank Harris at quarterback. You still have Zachary Franklin at wide receiver. This offense is going to be lethal under draft trailer. At number 11, I have Boise State. And I just have more questions about Boise State than UTSA. Maybe if they had like a head-to-head, it would be a 50-50 game. But I'll just lean towards UTSA a little bit more. Even though Boise State does have a lot of experience at quarterback and running back, losing Khalil Shakar is going to be a big loss for this offense. The defense is kind of still questionable in my opinion. It's going to be really intriguing how much that defense does develop in the Mountain West for this upcoming season. But I just think I'm more confident in UTSA than Boise State entering this season, and which is why I have UTSA at 10 and then Boise State at 11. NIU, or Northern Illinois, is the last 9-3 team in this video, and they are in the MAC. Just the level of competition in the MAC compared to the Conference USA and the Mountain West is just uncharted. The MAC is the worst conference, so that's why Northern Illinois is that low. But that rushing offense under Thomas Hammock is going to be a really, really good offense. But I actually really like this Northern Illinois team for this upcoming season, and I really, really want to see that rushing offense. But if you played Boise State or UTSA, you would lose that game if you're Northern Illinois. But they're going to be number 12, in my opinion. And here are the final 4 teams in this video. Utah State is number 13, and the only reason why I have them over San Diego State is because of the head-to-head. And also, last year, Utah State beat San Diego State in the Mountain West Championship game. But Utah State may have a few question marks after I just saw them versus UConn. But I just think under Blake Anderson, I think Logan Bonner is going to start picking things up, and this passing offense is going to be really good. We saw Calvin Tyler, oh my god. I don't know why I'm forgetting these names, but Calvin Tyler was really good last week as well on the ground versus UConn. And you do have some tough non-conference games, like that Alabama game this upcoming week, but I really like this Utah State team in the Mountain West. 14 is San Diego State. You do lose some big-time players like your punter and Matt Ariza. We know the headlines. We've saw it in the past week, but that's a really big loss, even though he is a punter. Also on the defensive line in Cameron Thomas. But I'm always confident in Brady Hoke in this offense. And overall with this team, he will find ways to win football games, and I'm confident he will this upcoming season. Number 15 is East Carolina. I'm just a big, big fan of this offense at East Carolina. What Mike Houston is doing over there is really, really good and intriguing. East Carolina is one of the most slept-on group of 5 teams in all college football, in my opinion. But you do have some tough games to start out the season, like a home game versus NC State. You also have to go to BYU. Those are killer games. But East Carolina is definitely going to keep some of those games close. So look out for the Pirates for this upcoming season. And to end the video, we have Air Force. Personally, I think Air Force could potentially be better than Utah State, San Diego State, and a few other of the teams that we've seen on this list so far. The only reason why they're dead last is the conference record. As of all the teams, they're the only team to have a 5-3 conference record. But you do win some non-conference games, like versus Colorado. That the triple option. The triple option is really deadly. And overall, I just really like this Air Force team. They're going to be lethal in the Mountain West. Can't wait to see Brad Roberts this upcoming season. Watch out for the Falcons. And that is it for my conference predictions. If you are a fan of any Group of 5 team I did not talk about, or any overall team, let me know in the comment section below. I'm really willing to just talk about any team, and I'll give you my record for those teams. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to post for this week 1, but I will be back for week 2. College football is back, folks. I'm thrilled, as you should as well. And like always, like, share, subscribe, push your notifications on so you don't miss any of my videos. Share this video so we can grow this ELK NCAA community. I would really appreciate it. And have a good day. Peace out.